have you all joining us to hang out with the Leadership Louisville Center and connect with each other. My name is Cynthia Napek. I am the president of the Leadership Louisville Center, and it's my job to welcome you this morning. It is also my privilege to tell you a little bit about what the Leadership Louisville Center has going on, because we want you, our alumni, to be connected to us. We want to provide you with services. We want to make sure you're connected and have the capacity to show up as the best version of yourself. And for all those of you that are guests, we want to show you what else is going on with the Leadership Louisville Center, so you'll start thinking about coming back to hang out with us more often. So, let's see, I'll sleep again. There we go. First thing I want to tell you about is our micro-learning. Micro-learning is part of our Green Room. As many of you all know, Green Room is our opportunity to help skill up our community. And we want to make sure that our leaders are inspired and equipped to be better and do better. Green Room is how we help equip people. And Green Room is all about your skills and your individual abilities. And usually our Green Room classes are full length, 1 and 2 days. But one of our strategic goals was to make sure that more people can access the center, that we remove some barriers to accessing the center and make it easier for us to make new friends in new places. So a no-cost opportunity to hang out with us was an important part of our strategic plan. And as it so happens, now that everyone has gone virtual, virtual is one of those things that does remove barriers and make it easier for us to be with more people. So our micro-learning opportunities are one of the newest things that we're doing, both to help the Leadership Louisville Center kind of pivot and do things differently, but also to help all of you make sure that you can show up ready to face these challenges that we're currently all dealing with, probably bigger challenges now than we've ever faced as leaders. The next one that's coming up is Leading with Grace During a Pandemic. It's Fiona Campbell, and I'm very excited about this one. We've actually had great response to these micro-learning opportunities. Hundreds of people are signing up for each one, and interestingly, it's expanded our geographic footprint as well. We've got people signing up from across the country and as far away as New Zealand. So come hang out with us in Fiona on May 29th. Next thing that's coming up is our full-length classes, and we've partnered with Ken Blanchard Companies. Blanchard is unarguably one of the best in the industry, and they have been doing virtual long before we started capitalizing the word Zoom. They are really good at this. And we wanted them to be one of our first partners as we do these kinds of things because we wanted to have the very best. And we're looking forward to learning from them. But most specifically, you're going to want to send your people. I know folks always tell me that they really wish that everyone on their team was that self-motivated self-starter. And the thing is that that's a teachable, trainable skill. And it's really just about the confidence to show up and be that jump right in and get going self-starter. So that's what this is going to focus on. You're going to want to send some folks from your team. Next thing is Wise Women. This is one of our favorite things that we do. There has never been a Wise Women that has not sold out in the 20 years, no, 14, yeah, 15, we'll round up. 15 almost-ish years that we've been doing this. And we're going to do it differently in June. We're going to do June with our virtual new talents and skills. And I'm sure that it's still going to sell out and it's going to be amazing. Ingrid's very excited. We're very excited. We've got a lot of those components that are still about that high touch, really connecting with people kind of thing that people love about Wise Women. So please mark your calendar for that one because we want to see you there. Leadership Louisville, applications are open. Our flagship program applications are open right now. We want to get your application in this week. Our classes, as many of you all know, I see all our alumni out there, are arguably each one wants the title of best class ever. And certainly this one will want that title too, but I feel like this one might also be vying for one of our most important classes ever. And we need community leaders now more than ever. And I think as Ashli starts talking, you'll start to understand how we all have to come together to get us going again. So that is an opportunity. If you're an alumni, you're going to want to recommend somebody else. If you haven't done this program, then maybe this is your opportunity to step up and be part of civic leadership. Okay, so I mentioned that it's really important that we all come together right now, that we all do these things that support the greater good so that we can relaunch well. One of those companies that has always been invested for 100 plus years, been invested in the greater good are our friends at Baird. Obviously, we know they've gone through a transition and are moving from the Hilliard Lyons brand to the Baird brand. But the tradition of long-standing good community partnership that goes with the transition and is still connected to them, if through no other way than the fact that they have amazing people who are there, who we know they work with us, they show up at the meetings, they do the heavy lifting of being part of life in the community. And one of those exemplars of that is Jim Allen, who has not only served on, but chaired about half the boards in this community. And we're always glad to have him as both an exemplar of the fine folks at Baird, but also as an exemplar of our mission at the Leadership Louisville Center. So ladies and gentlemen, will you please help me welcome Jim Allen, who is the Vice Chair of Baird.
Great, thank you, Cynthia, and good morning, everybody. Cynthia, again, want to take the opportunity to compliment you and your colleagues at Leadership Louisville for your great work. Another terrific lineup of programming. The community looks to you on so many levels for leadership development, relevant programming, thought leadership. And so we sincerely appreciate what you're doing, especially as you navigate this difficult period of time to deliver that programming. So great work on your part. And as a result, we're very proud to be part of this and to support the Thought Leadership series. You acknowledged at Baird and previously Hilliard Lyons that we have a long history of community support. Actually, over 165 years, if you trace it back through the Hilliard line of business. And so Hilliard Lyons has been part of this community and very prominent for that period of time. If you get to the corner of 5th and Jefferson and look skyward, you'll notice some new signage at the top of our building as the signs are being changed, have been changed. And so while the name Baird is the brand that we're going to build on going forward, we're certainly building on the great legacy of Hilliard Lyons, and our commitment to the community and our involvement remain unchanged, and we're very, very proud of that. So again, excited to make this move with a great partner and continue this legacy of support for the community. So this morning we've got a great program, and I think very, very timely, as is the case with all of the Leadership Louisville programming. We have Ashli Watts with us this morning, and Ashli was named President and CEO of the Kentucky Chamber, the state's largest business association, in November of 2019. She's been with the Chamber since 2012. During her tenure as a Senior Vice President of Public Affairs, she led efforts to pass significant pieces of legislation, such as felony expungement in 2016, right to work legislation in 2017, and workers' compensation reform in 2018. Ashli is a graduate of Leadership Kentucky and currently serves on the boards for Campbellsville University and Prevent Child Abuse Kentucky. We look forward to learning more about Ashli in the Kentucky Chamber this morning. And at this particular point in time, we really look to organizations like the State Chamber for leadership, guidance, and support. So as I said, it's very timely to have Ashli this morning. Ashli, thank you for joining us, and let's give Ashli a warm welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you, Cynthia. And thank you guys for having me this morning. I'm going to try to share a screen really quick. But it's nice to have to virtually see you all this morning. In the last 2 months, I know many of us have been living on Zoom. And so in this weird pandemic we're living in, has been kind of a nice way to connect with people in a kind of an easier format. I have, like Jim said, I've been the president of the Kentucky Chamber since November. Now, I've been at the Chamber for about 8 years, but little did I know that just a couple months into my tenure as running the state's largest business association, that about half of Kentucky businesses would be closed within about 3 months. And so it's been an unusual time. But I do think, given this kind of world we're living in, we've really at the Kentucky Chamber, just like you all at Leadership Louisville, and I know GLI as well, the Louisville Chamber of Commerce, really have kind of reshifted our mission. And we just decided back in mid-March, when all of this kind of occurred, to really do whatever we needed to do to make sure that businesses were getting the support and the advice and the help they needed to navigate all of this. And so it is a timely time, I think, to talk about kind of the state of the business community here in Kentucky, because this week is a big week. Yesterday, retail was able to open. Tomorrow, restaurants are getting ready to open, obviously at a little bit lower capacity, and it's all going to look a little bit different. But I do think that in the last couple of weeks, when we've had these dates in front of us, kind of on the horizon of when things can start to open, there has been a lot of optimism. So I do think that we're all getting used to this new normal. And we're going to talk a little bit in a minute about kind of the reactions of Kentuckians as we reopen business. So again, thank you all for having me. I'm actually in my office right now because I have a 4- and a 7-year-old at home. Today is their last day of virtual school. And so I decided to come into the office so to not have 4-year-olds running in the back of my screen. Yesterday, I was talking to some local chamber presidents. We had about 50 on a Zoom, and my 4-year-old son decided it was the time to practice his piano, which he barely even plays. So they just kind of know when to start making that noise. So I decided to come into the office. We've been open here at the chamber with about a staff. We have a staff of 40. We have about 4 or 5 people coming in the office now. So slowly but surely, we're all kind of getting into our new normal, and it's been nice. So what I want to do today for the next couple of minutes is really kind of talk about what the chamber has been doing the last couple of months, and it seems like sometimes longer than that, but really since mid-March to help businesses. And then I want to talk a little bit about how businesses are reacting and kind of the sentiments of the business community, as well as Kentuckians, as we kind of start back slowly reopening for business. And then we'll be happy to take any kind of questions that you guys may have. I know there's a lot of questions going around about requirements for reopening. We have a webinar this afternoon with our membership with the governor on contact tracing. There's lots of questions going around. So again, just like you all, we're just trying to be a source of whatever information we can be to all businesses here in Kentucky. So I'll start kind of back mid-March when all of this happened and business closed down. And like Jim said, we're the state's largest business association, and really our primary focus, our reason for being, is advocacy. That's why people join the chamber, is because of our advocacy work, not only at the state capitol, but also in Washington, D.C. But back in mid-March, we were in the middle of a legislative session when all of this hit. And we just really had to regroup and say, okay, what do businesses need from us now? And what we realized that they needed was a lot of help and a lot of questions being answered and a lot of paths being navigated. And so really that first week, we were getting just inundated with questions, and people were just emailing us and calling us. And so much to my staff's probably chagrin, I said, let's start a little bit of a Q&A website. I wanted kind of a sounding board that businesses and really all Kentuckians could go to if they had questions. And if it's hard to think back sometimes 2 months ago, but there were lots of questions on small business loans and whether they had to close and whether you were essential or not. And so that's kind of how we got started in our work, was really just simply answering those questions. And we are a membership-based organization, and we really decided at that point that we were going to help everyone. It didn't matter if you were a member of the chamber or not. Our mission at that point was to help anyone that needed help through this. And so kind of branding this, you can see on the top of the screen, it says Restart Kentucky. We just basically said we were doing everything we could to form a responsible plan for returning to work and restarting our economy. We also started the very beginning of this, the governor called and said he really needed help procuring PPE, which we all know now that means personal protective equipment. But I guarantee probably at the beginning of March, none of us knew what the acronym PPE meant, but now it rolls off of our tongue quite frequently. But he was especially looking for those N95 masks for our frontline workers. And I had no clue, I will tell you, at the beginning of March what an N95 mask was. But we quickly learned what they were, and that many times businesses had them at their disposal, especially in manufacturing plants, etc. And so he kind of asked us to do an all-call to membership for any kind of PPE, especially the masks, the gloves that were so desperately needed. And so we held some calls with our membership, and within like 2 days, we had thousands of N95 masks that were being shipped to the Chamber of Commerce that we were delivering to the Department of Public Health. For about a month, we were collecting masks, gloves, everything that you could think of, kind of in that realm of protecting our frontline workers. And it was really just businesses donating. And this is always where I like to say, if you think back to mid-March, this is when our world kind of shut down and businesses were being shut down, and to no fault of their own. And you guys know businesses are entrepreneurs, and many times when they had to shut down, they were risking their livelihood. They were having to lay off, their employees who are sometimes like family. And yet during this time, we never got complaints about, I can't believe you guys are making us do this. I can't believe I'm having to shut down. This is insane. What we kept hearing from businesses was, how can we help? How can we help? Can we drive the PPE to you? I have vans that I can deliver supplies. We have workers that we can help volunteer at the supply warehouse. And it was really overwhelming to see that the business community, I think, knew what the responsible thing to do. We were all Kentuckians at that time, and we were doing everything that we could just to make it through it. We also started working with the governor on coordinating many of our manufacturers to start making this personal protective equipment. And we know now that Ford, GE, Toyota, and others retooled their entire facilities to make masks and to make face shields. And if you think about making, appliances or trucks or SUVs or Camrys, and they shifted everything they could to make PPE really for free to make sure that our frontline workers were protected. And so we helped coordinate that effort on the behalf of the governor's office with all of our manufacturers around the state. We also, just like we're doing here, we started hosting webinars. We're chamber people. We like to meet and greet and grin and grip and do the breakfasts and the lunches and all of that. That's kind of who we are. That's what we do. And yet all of a sudden we couldn't do that anymore. And so luckily, thanks to Zoom and other platforms, we decided really to kind of focus on webinars. And again, we made these webinars open to anyone, not just chamber members, free of charge. And we started out kind of having some based on questions on unemployment insurance, questions on who had to close and who didn't, questions about school. And so we've been trying to have 2 a week, and we've been in partnership with our community and technical college system, KCTCS, on this initiative. I actually have 2 today. We don't usually try to do them 2 in a day, but the governor's actually going to do one for us this afternoon, talking about the contact tracing program. And then we also have one with his chief of staff as well as the deputy secretary for unemployment insurance to kind of go through reopening requirements and questions around that and all the questions surrounding unemployment insurance. So we're really just trying to find out what our members and what all businesses have questions about, and then trying to answer them through webinars. And we've had, huge success with this. Obviously, it's easier to hop on a webinar when you're working from home, but we've really been surprised. We have about 800 to 1,000 people on each webinar. We do record them and then post them on our website. So if you can't make the live webinar, you can always find those on our website. But we had one last week on tourism and kind of the future of tourism and all this. So they're pretty applicable, I think, issues that we're talking about. And the webinars, you know, I think this is something that we as chamber and kind of leadership type of groups are really going to be looking at as the future. We've heard a lot of comments on, hey, I love going and having, you know, the chicken for lunch and meeting with everyone and networking, but it saved my whole day just to be able to log on to a webinar. We've held a board meeting at the Kentucky Chamber. Never once in the whole history of the chamber did we ever have a board meeting that was not in person. We had a remote one a couple weeks ago. So I do think we're learning as we go, and I do think it's going to change the way we do a lot of business. So I'll just kind of run through some of these quickly now. PPP loans, that's another acronym that many of us know now. Small business loans, that's something that we really worked hard on. We worked with our banks, we worked with our small businesses to make sure that they could get those small business loans. And we advocated really aggressively on the federal level to make sure there was another infusion of money into that program. We are still advocating for that program, but it's been really a lifeline to many of our small businesses who at this point need liquidity and need to keep on their employees. So it's been a great program. We're really happy with how it's turned out. Who's hiring campaign? This may seem a little bizarre right now in kind of the world we're living in, but there are a lot of businesses that are hiring. And you think about Amazon, you think about grocery stores or pizza delivery or tech companies, things that have really boomed business these last couple of months. So we partnered with the state's Education and Workforce Cabinet and created a campaign called Who's Hiring? So you can go to that website and download an entire list of companies in Kentucky that are hiring. So we know that about 35% of our workforce is on unemployment right now. That's the highest in the nation. It's not a number that we love, but we are trying to connect them with people who are hiring right now in Kentucky. We See You local chamber campaign. We have, you guys know about GLI, I'm sure, in Louisville and J-Town Chamber and St. Matthews, but we actually have about 80 local chambers of commerce throughout Kentucky. And so we as kind of the parent organization want to do whatever we can to promote all the good work that they're doing during this time. And so we have created kind of a campaign, mostly on social media, to really highlight all the good work of local chambers. And then we talked about reopening business this week. We did create a task force that provided industry-specific recommendations for reopening. And we kind of pulled the best and the brightest together and said, how are you reopening your business? And it's amazing to see the links that people went to and companies went to protect their employees and protect their patrons. Brown-Forman is one of my favorite examples. I don't even know how much they have put in to all the protections they have put in place to protect their employees. And they even have their employees wearing shirts that say, stay 6 feet away. I mean, they have gone to every length. And so it's been really neat to see from our leaders in Kentucky, the amount they have gone to make sure everyone's safe. And so we were really happy when the governor put forth his recommendations for the requirements for reopening, that many of ours from our task force were adopted. We've partnered with the Department of Education. I mentioned earlier that I have a 4- and a 7-year-old at home, and we have been homeschooling, and we all know that many kids are now virtually learning. And so we've started doing a program called Virtual Bus to Business. And basically it's highlighting business leaders throughout Kentucky, what their degrees are in, why they got to the job that they're in now. And, you know, we tried to make it fairly simple because it's for elementary school kids. And so my daughter actually interviewed me. We had a really fun time doing that. And that is with the Department of Education, so that all public schools now have access to that for kind of extracurricular learning. And then we've all of a sudden here at the Chamber of Commerce turned into what I call Frankfurt FEMA. We wanted businesses to be up and running as quick and as safe as possible. And we didn't exactly know what that meant at the time. And we started hearing that many businesses, especially small businesses, were really in need of that PPE. And in particular, masks and hand sanitizer. And so we worked with the governor's office, and the governor asked us if we could purchase basically bulk amount of masks, because if you look up how to purchase masks, you get a pretty good price if you purchase them in $500,000, but most small businesses don't need $500,000 masks. And so we were able to purchase, we've now purchased about 800,000 masks, and we are selling them across the state. And when you order them, we will deliver them to your place of business within 2 days. That's kind of our guarantee. And it's $1 a mask. And so you can buy a box for $50. This is a short-term project for the chamber. We're not going to get into selling masks for long-term. But while businesses were getting up and running, we just wanted to make sure they were equipped with anything possible that they needed. And that seemed to be masks. And so we've sold about 700,000 now. We have a little bit more coming in. So if you need masks, let us know. And then hand sanitizer. The best thing, one of the great things about being the bourbon state is that there is a common ingredient in bourbon and in hand sanitizer, and that is alcohol. And so it's been a really cool partnership that we've had with the Distillers Association to make sure that all businesses had hand sanitizer before reopening. So you can go to kyhandsanitizer.com, get your hand sanitizer. It's really a win-win because not only are you as businesses getting the hand sanitizer you need that is very hard to find in stores, but you're also helping our distillery stay open, keep people on the payroll, and especially some of our small distilleries, kind of our craft distilleries. It's really been the thing to keep them afloat. So only in Kentucky could this happen, and I think it's pretty cool. I have a big bottle of Jim Beam hand sanitizer on my desk, so kind of a cool Kentucky thing right now. And then moving forward, we're still an advocacy organization. So we're looking at policy recommendations coming out of COVID-19. One of the things we're really looking at is employer protections. I think we have heard a lot of concerns with employers saying we want to reopen, we're doing everything as safe as possible, we're following the guidelines. But what happens if someone does get sick? What if they, what if they say they get sick here or a patron gets sick? And so we're kind of looking at making sure that employers are protected as we go through this. Try to go to my next slide. So this is just, I won't go through all this, but this is our reopening schedule, and it's kind of overwhelming now, which is good. We get more and more dates every day. And a lot of people have said, do you think we're reopening too soon? A couple months ago, we were in complete shutdown, and now we're talking about opening up, say, parks and fitness centers and movie theaters. And the answer I give to that is we know so much more than we did 2 months ago. 2 months ago, if we had interacted with anyone, it would have seemed rude if we had not shaken hands, right? Now, you would never shake hands with probably anyone you would come in contact with besides your family. And so our mindset has really changed over 2 months. And I think that that gives a lot of credence when we reopen business, that we know more. We know we have to wear our masks. We know we hand sanitize. We know to social distance. We know a lot more than we did 2 months ago to make sure that we are staying safe. But you can see from this list all the things that have opened, that are opening. Yesterday was retail. I have not gone to a store yet. I hope to do that in the next couple of days. I do have a dinner reservation tomorrow, so we'll see how that goes. I'm pretty excited about that. So slowly but surely, I think we're getting into our new normal. One thing I did want to mention for a leadership group like you all, the question that is still very much unanswered is events. We here at the Chamber, full disclosure, we have about 1/3 of our revenue are our events. Some of you guys may have been to our Chamber Day. We have about 1,500 people in that in January. We hold Best Places to Work, which is, we've shifted now to September. So we have really large events that are a revenue stream for the Kentucky Chamber, just like I'm sure they are for other associations as well. We really don't have much guidance on events right now. We know that as of tomorrow, you can gather in groups of 10. We know that in July, you can gather in groups of 50. But that's a pretty big jump going from 50 to the Derby. And so kind of what I say, my canary in the coal mine right now is the Derby. As long as the Derby is still being scheduled, there is still, I think, hope that we will have events come the fall. We've been working very closely with the hotel industry and the Travel and Tourism Association, talking to the Downtown Marriott in Louisville pretty frequently about these events that we want to host. But right now, I wish I could say there is a clear answer. But what we have learned by working so closely with the governor's office is I do think they are learning from other states that maybe are a little bit ahead of us in terms of reopening. And so hopefully that, Indiana is opening up for groups of 250 soon. And so I think we'll see how those states go and then adjust accordingly. But I would think by July, there will be a decision on those larger events and probably the Derby and all of that. But that's one thing I did want to mention, because I do think that there is a time frame for almost everything else except for those large events. Another kind of bellwether we are looking at as well is the state fair. So I'm kind of always keeping my ears open for state fair and for Derby to see kind of the possibility of events moving forward. But I do think you can see from this list, we're doing pretty well with a phased-in reopening. Many states have kind of moved at a little quicker path than we have. I think, honestly, from our members, the businesses of Kentucky, we're pretty comfortable with this gradual phased-in reopening. We've surveyed our membership every single week since all of this happened. And basically, businesses said they needed 10 days notification for reopening to make sure that their employees can come back, that they have the supply chain they need. So I do think giving us ample time to get kind of back up and running, get the PPE you need is really important. And I think this phased-in reopening is a good idea. So we did a poll a couple weeks ago with a pollster from all over Kentucky. And we really wanted to kind of find out, were people comfortable starting to live life again, to starting to get back out in the open now that we kind of have this schedule for reopening? And so we asked the question, once government provides information that the spread of the virus is declining and it's time for the economy to reopen and for people to kind of come out of their homes, how likely are you to feel safe enough to do so? And this also encompasses going back to work or going into business establishments. And I will even admit I was pleasantly surprised with this result. 80% of Kentuckians said that when the governor and the president and kind of the government says, we're going to start reopening, they felt very safe. I have often thought in the last couple of weeks when kind of looking at this poll, other states may not have had the same answer to this. And we have really been talking a lot lately about the onus is on the business community right now to make sure that their employees and their patrons feel safe, to communicate all of those extra links that you are going to make sure that everyone is going to be healthy at work. So the masks, the hand sanitizer, the onus is on us to make sure people know they are safe. And I will give Kentucky a lot of credit, because I think that any projection that we've seen, that we saw even a couple months ago about the number of deaths or the people that would be sick because of this, not only has Kentucky really, flattened the curve, which is something that we say quite a bit, we really have crushed the curve. Our numbers are much lower than we ever thought there would be. There had been field hospitals set up in Louisville, Lexington, Northern Kentucky that were not having to be opened. And so because people acted so responsibly. And this is the time I like to talk about, businesses, I think, should get a lot of credit in this. You think about the last couple of months, and honestly, there have been no bad actors in the business community. There haven't been businesses that, should have closed but didn't, or have been shamed and said, I can't believe that they're still making their employees come to work and they're not providing a safe environment. That hasn't happened in Kentucky. And businesses have been nothing really but responsible the last 2 months to make sure that their employees, their patrons, and all Kentuckians remain safe. And so I think that this number reflects that. I think that Kentuckians have been very responsible in knowing to social distance and knowing the extremes that we've gone to save lives. And so saying that, it gives me great optimism that now that we're starting to reopen, that Kentuckians will feel that same responsibility from businesses, that they will do things in the best manner possible. And they have gone to every extreme to keep people safe. So I do think it's a great number. I think it leads into, we have been so responsible thus far. We're going to continue to carry that over. And so I think we're ahead of the game of many states. And I think a lot of that credit goes to the business community for really shutting down and doing what they needed to do. But they will be opening back up in a very responsible manner. I will say, I know you guys are obviously on the border of Indiana, and that's been a lot of a question of Indiana's opening before Kentucky. How does that look? I will say, and I am pretty certain of this, the requirements that Kentucky has for reopening right now are probably the strictest in the nation. And though sometimes businesses might like a little bit more flexibility, I think we're all pretty comfortable with the requirements that we have right now to make sure that everyone is staying as safe as possible. And businesses, from what we've been hearing and talking to, they want to follow those requirements to a T. They don't want any gray area. They want to follow the law and keep people as safe the best as possible. So I thought this was a really interesting statistic that we found, that here in Kentucky, I think because we've done it so well, frankly, people are ready to kind of get back out in a very safe and responsible manner. This was another question we asked on that survey of, when do you think the stay-at-home order should be lifted and Kentucky could return to normal? So this was at the very beginning of May. A lot of people said immediately. 20% said immediately, 22% said May, 27% said June, and 24% said July or later. So you're looking at about a quarter of the people who are still a little uncomfortable, that think that things, really should probably stay a little bit locked down through July. But about 75% also say, I think we're on a kind of a good track. We're doing this phased in reopening. We're here now in late May. We're almost into June. So I think Kentucky really is on kind of the path of what the citizens are wanting us to follow. So that's kind of what I have today. We are excited to kind of help businesses reopen in the best way that they can and keep everyone as safe as possible. I talk to my counterparts from other state chambers several times a week, and I will say I think our business community, the governor, all the citizens of Kentucky have really banded together during this time. And I am very optimistic that we will continue to stay safe as we reopen for business. But I will say, I would encourage everyone, as the chamber president, to really support these businesses who have supported you the last 2 months by doing everything in their power to keep all Kentuckians safe. Even at the risk of closing their business and losing their livelihood, they have done what is right. And so hopefully now that we are starting to reopen, we will remember those Kentucky businesses and give them our support, because right now they desperately need it. The Kentucky Chamber, we are comprised of the majority of small businesses make up our membership. And we know, especially in retail and restaurant, that potentially a third of them will not make it past this. And so we've already seen, I've seen several restaurants in Louisville saying they are closing their doors for good. I do think that the future of retail is going to look different. We all know how much we've probably ordered on Amazon and online the last couple of weeks, and you find the ease of that and kind of getting it delivered to the comfort of your home. So as leaders in Louisville, I would just encourage you all to really support your businesses in Louisville, your restaurants, your retail, and show them the gratitude that they have kind of shown us the last couple of months by shuttering their doors and keeping us all safe. And now it's time to support them. So with that, Cynthia, I will kind of open it up to any questions anyone has.
So I think one of the first questions in there is about you, Ashley. So you're a new significant leader in our Commonwealth. Tell us a little bit about your path and, what you think what will be your mark on the Kentucky Chamber? What do you want to bring?
So my path is, I've always kind of been in government and politics. So I went to Campbellsville University and got a degree in political science and history, not really knowing exactly what I wanted to do, if I wanted to run for office, if I wanted to work for a politician. And then I went to University of Louisville, go Cards, and got my master's degree in public policy and administration. And I interned at the Capitol with the legislature, and basically I moved to Frankfort my senior year of college, and I have never left. I've kind of always been in the Capitol. I worked for the legislature, for the Bar Association, and then for the Chamber. And so I like to say I'm a recovering lobbyist at this point. I lobbied for about 16 years of my career, and that's really kind of how I've made my mark here at the Chamber and here in Frankfort. But I will say, being kind of thrown into a pandemic and kind of retooling everything that we're doing at the Chamber has definitely been a lesson in leadership for me. Leadership is not always easy, as we know. And who would have thought that just a couple months into this new job, when the economy was at an all-time high, membership at the Chamber was at an all-time high. We had good friends in Frankfort and DC, and things were pretty good. I was given the keys to an organization that was pretty much at a high. And then within just a couple of months, we see about a third of our businesses having to close their doors. And so this has been, I think, a test in leadership, but I do think that it will, for me personally, it has made me a stronger leader, especially I would say supervising a staff of 40 remotely. Even that comes with its challenges, and making sure that employees feel safe in their career, they feel that they're appreciated. And so we're going to get through this, and I think we'll come out stronger on the other side. I will say I did book a vacation for the last week of June, and I'm really looking forward to it. I don't think I've taken a day off in the last probably 6 months, so taking a little time to refresh. But never would have thought I would have been in this situation, but my personality is that I kind of work fairly well under pressure, and I kind of just go, go, go. And so this, I would say, has given me really a mission, and kind of a mission of my own, kind of a new stamp of the chamber. And I will say I've been really impressed with all of our staff and the collaboration with the governor's office. We've been able to really help a lot of people. And so I say, even though it sounds silly that we're collecting masks or we're sending masks to people and we're sending our hand sanitizer, I tell the staff that are, boxing those up and sending them out, which they never thought they'd be the UPS office, and here we are. Those are literally saving lives. And so don't discount some of these even small acts. It looks much different than what we did a couple months ago, but it really is helping business in a really, really tangible and important way.
So, one of the things that I know we've used at Leadership Louisville Center are some of the data, metrics, and studies that have been done by the Kentucky Chamber. Like, I think that the leaky bucket was provided one of those, exploding mind kind of aha insights to what's going on. And I've seen some of the future trend analysis that has come out of some different think tanks about what's in our future. And I just wonder, does the Chamber have lined up a little futurist, a report, data, or is that like it doesn't matter because it's all crystal ball and we're not focused on that right now?
We do. And so the leaky bucket is a report that we've done, and we've done a couple updates. We actually just published an update back in December, I believe. Basically saying, kind of looking at the state budget and seeing where there were leaks in the budget. Well, we now know within 1 year that there is going to be a $500 million shortfall, at least in the state budget. And that affects everything. That affects transportation, it affects education, it affects criminal justice, it affects everything. And so we have been working with Dr. Paul Coombs. You guys are probably familiar in Louisville. He did a webinar for us a couple weeks ago, really looking at the projections for the economic impact of this pandemic. And at the beginning, a lot of people kind of related it to the recession, and really it can't be compared. Right now we have 35% unemployment. During the recession, it was 8 or 9%. Like, it's something that we've never tackled before, and we can't compare. So we are doing kind of a deep dive into how this affects our economy moving forward. We're also really taking a look and working with some people at U of L and UK, economists and people from the School of Medicine on, if there is a resurgence in the fall, how do we still tackle the health issues but not shut down the economy completely? Is there a more kind of strategic way to do it? Is there a more strategic way to do testing? And we're really interested in that co-immunity project that U of L is doing and that Jefferson County is participating in, where it's basically a sampling of testing, and that you can really dive deep into the data of that to see that what populations may be affected more or less, certain parts of the region. And so I think we're really looking to help work with the governor's office and provide them some sound data that if this does see a resurgence in the fall, we don't have to shut down the entire economy. So that's kind of what we're looking at now. Is we've done what we've needed to do the last couple of months, but we know more than we did in March. And so taking that economic analysis and the public health data, if this happens again, how can we do it maybe in a strategic way where we keep people safe, but we don't completely shut down our entire economy?
So while we're talking metrics and data, I've got a question from Stacy Klein, who also wants kind of that crystal ball data / futurist. What percentage of businesses do you all expect might close due to our recent issues?
You know, and this is, we even hate to speculate on it. We know restaurants and retail will be the hardest hit. We know that. And so we have seen some estimations that even a third could be closed down. And that's pretty shocking, but I do think those are the sectors that are going to be the hardest hit. So that's why I said, make sure you're patronizing your local establishments and getting takeout and all of that. The interesting thing though, is that this will be a shift in our economy. This is going to be a shift in how we all do business. And so while restaurants and retail may fall, you're going to see new businesses pop up, especially in the world of IT. For example, before we come into our building, we have to do the health analysis that everyone's supposed to do. And we have an app on our phone that someone just created that you fill out this app and then you can walk into the building. And so you see a lot of innovation in times like this. And I do think we might see certain sectors slow down, but other sectors really ramp up. So you look at logistics, which Louisville is the hub for with UPS. You're going to see certain sectors really, I think, spike up, and you're going to see a lot of innovation, I think, in the next year or so, especially in the world of information technology and how we kind of do business in a different way. And what some people have said is that where we are now, we thought it would take about 5 years to get to in the terms of IT and virtual meetings and schoolwork and all of this, and we did it in about 2 months. So this was kind of always the projection that we would eventually kind of get to this more world where we're living kind of, you know, on the cloud, but we sped that up tremendously. So retail and restaurant, though, I would say it's going to be the hardest hit. And we've heard, unfortunately, numbers of around potentially a third.
So I do love that topic of innovation and the whole idea of like, can we focus on some bright spots? So I wonder if you can talk a little bit more about that. Both, are there some innovations that you know, some companies that you think are real like, oh, we should pay attention there, that's looking good? Are there things that the Kentucky Chamber will do to help businesses who are innovating and doing things?
Yeah, so it's kind of it is a bright spot because you're seeing, I've talked to several people that are creating apps for even like contact tracing so that you can kind of know where you're going. Or like I said, the health screening, we didn't know how we were going to health screen people. UPS didn't know how they were going to health screen 10,000 employees. And then all of a sudden, miraculously, there's an app that comes out that it's pretty easy to do so. And so we at the Chamber have a partnership with the Entrepreneur Hall of Fame, and it really highlights those Kentucky entrepreneurs. And so I do think there's definitely opportunity there to really, you know, tap into that entrepreneurship here in Kentucky and see kind of what we can do. One thing I do think is interesting, I mentioned retail and restaurant. Another form of business that may not fare as well is commercial real estate. So we have learned over the last 2 months that, and I think most businesses agree, that people work fairly well from home. It can be done in a lot of situations. And I always say I was kind of one that I was an office type person. I've always come into the office. I feel like I work better kind of in a removed setting from my house and my kids and my washer and dryer and all of that, all the things that kind of can distract you. But what we've learned, and we've heard from a lot of employees, is that they've actually been more productive at home. And there's not so much of this work-life balance anymore as work-life integration. And so Nationwide Insurance has a headquarters, they're a member of ours. They have a headquarters in Ohio. They have shut down their headquarters. They're just letting their people now work from home because they realize that they can be more productive. It's a perk for a lot of employees that really have wanted to do this. And you save money on your real estate and your rent. So that's another area that I think people will start being very innovative with, especially in the days of with a potential recession, maybe not getting raises. That's a perk that employers can give, as well as maybe having flexibility from working from home. So we've seen a lot of growth, I think, in the last 2 months, and it'll be interesting to see how far we come. Another example is the hand sanitizer and the distillers. Who would have thought a year ago that every distillery in Kentucky would be making hand sanitizer and just meeting that need? And they, like that, just got it done. So it's been really cool to kind of look at how Kentuckians have stepped up to the challenge and really kind of modified their normal scope of work to kind of fit this pandemic and really kind of make a difference.
one of the things that is important to the Leadership Louisville Center is helping people make sure that they have confidence and courage to move forward, which is like, that's our, it's our raison d'etre. But right now it's like really important that everyone has that confidence and courage. What's something coming up in your near horizon that you feel like you're really going to need to build some confidence and courage in terms of leading the chamber forward?
This is a question I always say, if one thing keeps me up at night these last couple months, it is that I am, responsible for 40 employees, and I'm responsible for their paychecks and their salaries and keeping their families afloat. And we have, moms and dads and people that are supporting other people. And so when you look at a business association and people pay membership to join the chamber. We also have revenue through events, and we have other streams of revenue, and we're really okay. A lot of our local chambers, I worry about them, but I do worry about the financial implications and kind of if any personnel changes are going to have to happen, and all of that. That weighs probably heavier on me than almost anything else, because you do feel like, as a supervisor, and especially being new, and you come from a pretty high point and all of a sudden we're in this pandemic, that is what weighs heaviest on me, is making sure that the employees are safe and provided for and feel valued, and that we can keep the momentum going.
That's one of those things that is a shared experience for most of the people on this call right now,
Yeah.
right? So that is a something where we can definitely say we are all focused on that right now. So I want to, before we let you go, I kind of want to give you just a quick opportunity to do the Kentucky Chamber infomercial. Like, tell us, we should all be members of the Kentucky Chamber,
Yeah.
right? Tell us why. What have you got?
Absolutely. So we are here to help businesses in whatever way you need help. And in the last couple of months, it's been really, really frontline. We have answered questions about unemployment insurance and small business loans, helping people get PPE, but really our main focus is advocacy, and that's what we do best. And the beginning, my bio talks about the various bills that we've been able to pass, but when we pass a workers' comp bill and we're able to save you 30% on workers' comp within a year of passing that bill, that means a lot for businesses. And so there are strength in numbers. We are here to help businesses in whatever way we can. And so we're really just here to navigate all of this for you all. We have a robust foundation as well. So we have a pretty big operation going on, and you guys may be more familiar with our events and things that you attend, but really we are here for advocacy and wherever businesses need us right now. And so we would just encourage you guys to look into us and see kind of, if you have any questions about the chamber, give us a call. We would love to help you, answer any questions, connect you with people. That's a big thing right now, especially when we're kind of virtual, is people need a lot of connections and we're missing those connections. And I often say that's what the chambers do best, is we bring people together. We bring people together to make a big difference. And so if you're interested, just give us a call. We have a website, kychamber.com. We also have a news site, kychamberbottomline.com, where we it's called Business News, or Frankfurt News for a Business Audience. And so if you ever kind of want to know what's going on in Frankfurt or in DC, we try to make the stories very business focused, focus on things that business leaders want to hear about. But we do have a pretty active news site as well. So I would encourage you guys to check that out.
Awesome. Thank you, Ashley. We'll try and spread the word on that, on your new website too, because I think that's very important to us at Leadership Louisville, is to make sure that people are actively connected to what happens in Frankfurt. It's one of those big dominoes that when we are good about, when we hit that domino in the right way, then good things happen for us. So making sure that people are connected there. And I do think the Kentucky Chamber has done a great job of being an advocate. It's also one of the things I'm excited about with you new in the role, and Sarah Devasher Wisdom in the role at the at GLI. I think you all are both very good, very strong in that advocacy role. So I'm hoping that's maybe a part of the legacy that you all leave behind, is the ability to connect those dots and do good things in Frankfurt. We need some good things to happen.
Absolutely.
There. All right. Well, thank you guys for all hanging out with us. I want to shout out to Holly Prather, who's our Vice President at Leadership Louisville. She's curating all this for us. If you have thoughts and ideas on who our next Thought Leadership Series speaker should be, you should give a shout out to Holly. She's tracking all that. And then, of course, Shelly, if you all have in your office, do you have like a nucleus person, the person who always knows who's on first, what's going on second? That's Shelly for us. So she's hanging out with us today, making sure that we all showed up on first and second accordingly. And all the Leadership Louisville Center team who's doing great work, keeping us all connected in the middle of all the craziness. So shout out to them, shout out to all of our alumni. If there's anything we can do for you, please let us know. You could be fantastic ambassadors for us. So when you get stuff in your email inbox, hit forward again, forward it out to someone else. Help us meet some new friends. Thanks again, as always, to Jim Allen and all the many people at Baird who help us, who show up, who are idea generators and roll up their sleeves kind of people in this community. We appreciate them being part of this. When we said we were going to flip it to virtual, they were like, yep, we're in, we're there with you. So we appreciate that. Until next time, Ashley, we wish you lots of luck. We want good things and success. And when you're successful, Kentucky is successful. So thank you for hanging out with us. Thanks to all of you guys. Until we see you again, be well.